In the early morning light, whispers spread quickly through the village that bordered the vast wildlife reserve. A wounded lion had been spotted limping near the edge of the fields, close to homes and livestock. Fear gripped the community. Mothers pulled their children inside and men sharpened their tools, determined to drive the beast away or hunt it before it could threaten anyone. But Eli, a 32-year-old farmer known for his quiet nature and deep respect for the land, saw something different. He watched the lion from a distance, noticing the way its golden eyes shimmered with pain, not rage. The animal's heavy steps betrayed exhaustion and suffering. Eli felt a stirring in his heart, a call to act differently. While others argued for fear and defense, Eli quietly gathered water and fresh meat, leaving it near the lion's path. He knew this wasn't just a wild beast, it was a creature in need. And sometimes, he thought, courage means standing alone, standing with compassion, even when everyone else turns away. The village square buzzed with tension as the residents gathered, voices rising in fear and frustration. They warned Eli sharply, eyes full of worry. "That lion is dangerous," they said. "It will kill our goats, threaten our children. You must stay away." Old stories surfaced. Tales of past attacks, of livestock lost, of neighbors narrowly escaping claws and teeth. The air thickened with suspicion and dread. But Eli stood firm, his gaze distant as memories stirred. He thought of his father, a man who once saved a wild antelope caught in a hunter's trap. No harm had come to their family after that. Instead, respect and understanding had grown between man and beast. He tried to explain, "Not every animal is a threat. Sometimes they suffer like we do. If we look with fear, we only invite more danger." Yet the village's fear was strong. For many, the lion was no longer a creature of the wild. It was a symbol of risk and uncertainty. Eli knew his path wouldn't be easy, but his heart whispered a different truth. Kindness might just be under the pale light of the moon. Eli moved quietly toward the lion's resting place at the edge of the woods. Clutched in his hands were pieces of fresh meat and a container of water, simple offerings meant to soothe a suffering soul. The lion's golden eyes caught the faint glint of Eli's approach, sharp and unblinking. For a moment they held each other's gaze, an unspoken understanding passing between man and beast. The lion remained still, neither accepting nor retreating. Eli gently placed the food on the dusty ground, careful not to startle the animal. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped back, hands raised slightly as a gesture of peace. The risk hung heavy in the night air. One wrong move could ignite fear or aggression. But Eli believed in this silent act, a promise that he was a friend, not a foe, and sometimes he thought that alone could change everything. The bravest act of all. Day after day, Eli returned to the lion's resting spot, carrying meat and water with steady hands and a hopeful heart. Always careful to keep his distance, he left the food where Zar, the name Eli had quietly given the lion, could find it easily. At first, Zar watched silently, wary of the strange human who entered his world. But slowly, signs of recovery began to show. His limp eased, his eyes regained their sharpness, and his coat, once dull and patchy, started to shine again under the sun. Word of Eli's unusual bond with Zar spread quickly through the village. Some whispered in admiration, calling Eli brave, a man willing to face danger with compassion. Others shook their heads, labeling him mad for trusting a wild lion. Still, Eli remained undeterred. Each day's ritual became a quiet act of defiance against fear, a promise that healing was possible, even in the harshest places. And somewhere deep in the wild, a wounded lion began to trust again. Days turned into weeks, and Zar's cautious glances grew softer. The lion began to recognize Eli's scent carried on the wind and the gentle tone of his voice. So one bright morning, as the sun warmed the earth, Zar did something no one expected. He stepped closer. No growl shattered the silence. No tension tightened his muscles. Instead, there was calm, an almost reverent stillness. Eli's heart pounded, But he stayed still, knowing this fragile moment could not be rushed. Slowly he extended a hand, fingers trembling slightly. Zar lowered his massive head, allowing the touch, a gentle nudge that sealed their silent promise. For Eli, this wasn't just kindness anymore. It was something deeper, something rare. Connection. The lion was no longer a dangerous beast, but a living soul who had weathered pain and found trust. Together, they bridged the divide between wild and human, fear and friendship. In that moment, Eli knew his quiet faith had sparked a bond that might change everything. For Zar, for the dark clouds rolled in quickly, swallowing the village in shadows. A violent storm unleashed its fury. Howling winds tore down fences, heavy rains flooded fields, and frightened goats scattered into the chaos. Eli hurried outside, desperate to round up his animals and bring them to safety. But the water was rising fast, creeping over the lowlands and cutting off escape routes. Panic threatened to overwhelm him as the floodwaters closed in, trapping him and his livestock. Just when hope began to fade, a familiar sound cut through. The storm, the mighty roar of Zar. The lion appeared out of the swirling rain, pacing urgently near Eli. With fierce determination, Zar moved toward higher ground, then turned back repeatedly, as if urging Eli to follow. Trusting his bond with the lion, Eli rallied his goats and pushed forward, following Zar's lead. Through the storm and rising waters, Zar guided them safely to a hilltop refuge. In the eye of the tempest, their unlikely friendship became a lifeline, proving that sometimes the wild can save us when we need it most. Illage. And for himself, from the safety of higher ground, the villagers gathered, their eyes wide with disbelief. They watched as Zar, the lion they had feared and scorned, moved steadily through the flooded fields, guiding Eli and his scattered goats with urgent purpose. No one dared step forward or call out. This was a moment beyond words, beyond fear. The wild predator, once seen only as a threat, had become a guardian. Mothers held their children close, elders whispered prayers, and even the harshest skeptics fell silent. Zar's powerful form cut through the water, roaring to keep the herd together, pacing to ensure none were left behind. Eli followed closely, his heart pounding with gratitude and awe. For the first time, the village glimpsed the deeper nature of the lion, not a mindless beast, but a living soul capable of loyalty and courage. The floodwaters were a test, and Zar had passed with honor. That day, something shifted in the hearts of all who watched. A new respect for the wild, and a quiet hope that trust might bridge the gap between man and nature. As the storm clouds cleared and the sun began to warm the drenched earth, Zar sat quietly near Eli's barn, his golden mane damp but regal. For the first time since the lion appeared near the village, the people gathered, not with fear, but with cautious curiosity. Slowly, villagers stepped forward, eyes wide but respectful. Mothers whispered to their children. Elders exchanged knowing looks. Eli stood beside Zar, sharing the story of their bond, the wounds, the trust, the storm, and the rescue. The elders, weathered by years of tradition and wisdom, nodded thoughtfully. One spoke aloud, his voice calm and sure. This lion is no mere beast. He is a spirit of the wild, a guardian sent to watch over us, not to harm. The crowd murmured in agreement, their fears softened by Eli's truth and Zar's quiet dignity. From that day forward, Zar was no longer seen as a menace but as a hero with a mane, a symbol of courage, loyalty, and the power of unexpected friendships. And, in the village, a new chapter began, one where man and wild lived closer with respect and hope. A few days after the storm, Zar stood tall and strong beneath the dappled light of the forest edge. His coat gleamed, his eyes bright with renewed life. The time had come. Eli waited silently nearby, heart heavy but filled with gratitude. He watched as Zar turned his massive head, locking eyes with the man who had shown him kindness when the world had turned away. No growl, no roar, just a quiet, steady look. It was a farewell spoken without words, a bond that needed no language. Slowly, Zar stepped forward, disappearing into the thick trees, leaving behind the village and the farmer who had believed in him. Eli stood alone, feeling the weight of loss and the warmth of a friendship that had changed them both. In that moment, man and lion parted as equals, connected forever by trust, courage, and a shared journey of hope. The days turned into years, but the village never forgot the story of Czar, the lion who stood guard, who trusted a man, and who saved lives when the storm came. To honor this extraordinary bond, Eli carved a wooden statue of Czar and placed it proudly at the village entrance. Beneath it, the simple words read, "Sometimes the wild remembers kindness." Travelers and storytellers began arriving from far and wide, eager to hear the tale of the quiet farmer who dared to show compassion to a feared beast. And in doing so, changed the hearts of an entire community. The village, once divided by fear, now celebrated a symbol of courage, loyalty, and hope. Eli's story reminded everyone that true bravery isn't always about facing danger head-on. Sometimes it's about facing the unknown with an open heart, because in the wild, and in life, kindness can be the fiercest strength of all. We hope you were inspired by this powerful true story of compassion and courage. If it touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more emotional wildlife stories.